Yeah, it was about Bhavish Puran. I read that the English people study Bhavish Puran, and there are a portion of Bhavish Puran called Bhavishyottar Puran. And they tried hard and put it out of India. And it is not available in any version of Bhavish Puran. Bhavishyottar Puran.
Given that talked about the Eurocentric approach, during the colonial era, the Europeans were the global powers. So given that not just India but they colonized, say, China, South America, so I mean, how are they coping with their own histories when those countries?
I am unfortunately not knowledgeable about how South American history is written.
No, but is this distortion just in India or that is?
Okay, so it's an important point, but look at what happened when the Europeans went to South America. They didn't succeed in a complete genocide of the native cultures in South America. They were completely successful in converting them all, entire population, to Christianity. So what history are they?
There's one more point to that. It's actually a very important point. In South America, I think Jaideep would also, he'll correct me if I'm wrong. In South America, what also happened was when the Spanish and the Portuguese went there, they not just converted, but they also mixed or intermingled with the races. Isn't that right?
I think it happened pretty much in Australia as well.
No, they had to because they had to.
Both South America and North America.
Aborigines.
Sanjay, it happened both in South America and
North America, it was more of a liquidation kind of model because there was not too much of intermingling between the whites and the Native Americans. In the South, it was a little different.
That's because South America had a lot more native population compared to there's almost like 10 times more people in South America.
And it's also perhaps because the Anglo-Saxons went to North America and in the South, it was the Southern Europeans who went.
Key to understanding Indian history is, again, I would like to emphasize on this fact. It's the way religion as such is being used. Basically, what the Western model of Islam and Christianity, all about exclusivity. Most of our historians have tried to box the word Hindu into religion. Now that itself actually is a key to a major distortion, if I am right, on a civilizational perspective. I think we need to address that first because, as you said, I like to, in the beginning of your speech, why we actually lost a warfare as such. We had dharma in warfare also. I think Dr. Swami keeps reiterating this in many of his speeches where, okay, our rulers would go to a Maidan only. And it wasn't the way Islam or Christianity would actually protect the war.
It can be true because night warfare was not part of the same dharma until Alexander came and changed the rules of the game. After it was pretty much free for all.
But how do you know that Indian ruler?
Why we lost was most battles was one because of a misplaced sense of forgiveness. I mean, you had a Prithviraj Chauhan who sent back Muhammad Ghori for like what, 11 times, 7 times? 16. Yeah, whatever number. What do you call him?
This is exactly what I'm trying to understand. Would you call that?
And second, we also lost because of not keeping pace with military technology across the world. That's how Babur could win.
What I'm trying to understand with Prithviraj Chauhan is he forgave his enemy 16 times. What he considered dharma.
Like I said, it's a misplaced sense of dharma.
Yeah, because his fault. His advisors had told him don't spare, so he has refused to listen to their advice also. Despite that, he said, okay, let's do it.
Pretty much applicable to most Hindu kings. Yes, you had something.
I just have a question. If we compare barbaric sort of warfare or whatever, you see Rome fell because of barbarians, etc. So what were the instances in India where barbarians raided and destroyed civilizations? But it's not there. Most of these barbarians were from outside, as far as I know. But
You think Islamic invaders were enemies barbarians?
no, that's what I'm saying. More from outside, but in Indian history, it is
Okay.
the Kalinga is still not barbaric because I think the deaths were battlefield deaths rather than raiding of towns and villages. But correct me, I don't
It
know.
was shaped by the culture of the country.
Yeah.
I mean, there are certain do's and don'ts even on the battlefield.
So shouldn't
So
we
they
have
were violent, but they weren't barbaric. Like, the complete annihilation. Like.
shouldn't there be some kind of comparative study of barbarian kind of?
Like I
So
said,
that's also
go
part of
comparative
history
study of
and,
everything.
eventually that's what differentiates. You see most other places it's very barbaric way of attacking another civilization, whereas here battlefields were just battlefields, disputes.
Collateral damage.
You can't call it collateral, it's battlefield damage. Why the barbarianism is
Bill.
not written directly, that's what it is kind of setting up. This is just directly done it. Some like mandate for multiple interest. It's not something to change the formal history which is going to be taught, right, in the schools, unless it happens in the curriculum or the rewriting of effort which gets recognized or it's done in a structured way. How is that going to be tackled?
I'm not sure I really understood.
Like now you say what we are studying isn't the right history. Okay, facts proven or accepted based on whatever left, and I'm not going into that. Until it goes into the mind of more and more people, this will always remain an exercise of one section of us, minuscule section. But a majority of the country would continue to be fed the same kind of stuff which they are being fed. How is that going to be tackled? That unless your curriculum is changed, like the NCERT director at that time, Rajput or this, he faced a lot of hurdles, right?
This happened, right? I mean, even this happened. History rewriting thing happened.
It happened and then
And
again
it happened because
changes.
of Charcha's.
Yeah, and then again pressure to change something that's Africanization. It's not an easy thing I'm saying. I mean, over a period of
No, it's
time.
not easy. It's not easy. The key to it is political power.
Yeah.
Oh,
The
okay.
key to it is political power. No, you don't have to
It's outside the
involve.
ambit of this discussion.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm asking is, what is the way forward to establish the fact that we are reading the false history and to start reading the actual history?
It has already been established in several ways and over a number of years. I mean, if you look at eminent historians' book, it's also a product of such efforts.
Can I
Now, what would my suggestion is, there is a thing called coursera.com where people go and take their personal courses, whatever they like it. I'm taking a mathematics course from Stanford University, some professor. There is like 50,000 people at a time, they are taking the course
They have
simultaneously.
Present course, history of the world history from 1300.
Yes,
It's just going on
yes.
from Princeton University.
So, what I would suggest is somebody is a very good professor who can give us a proper course, like three weeks course or 3 months course in Coursera. So, the large number of people get to take the course. Yeah.
It's a course going on at present now. I've enrolled for the course, world history since 1300.
Maybe you should spread the word.
Yeah.
I have
Why I came here is I want to know that there are professors who can help us to take this forward, this idea forward.
I have a doubt. I don't know whether this question is out of the ambit, but what has been the contribution of these saints, patron saints like Shankaracharya, Ramanuja, Madhvacharya on the discourse in maybe history of India? Are they relevant in the discourse of history?
Of course it is.
So,
Of course it is.
my question is,
You look at the time they lived in, and you can trace out the history of that people, so to say. Yes.
I have one question. That suppose I think Prithviraj Chauhan and Mohammad Ghori fought for 16 times. Now, if I understand, let's say Prithviraj Chauhan reigned for 30 years. So it means that each and every 2 years he fought. It is logically.
On an average.
Okay. Now, if I think second other side, Ghori, let's say the Ghori has a soldier of let's say around 50,000. After each and every battle, he lost around 5,000 soldiers. Now he has to bring the soldier from outside, means from his country. He cannot take from our country. So
that was the problem. There was local support.
Yes. Prithviraj Chauhan's uncle didn't need to conquer.
no,
Father-in-law.
every time he was not supported. He was not supported every time.
Okay, this takes us to the specifics, and then we will discuss it.
So my question is,
It's a good point though, and it's a common phenomenon. Okay, I mean, I will say.
no, actually I want to tell that how will you convince the other people, convince the Indians that this is a logical argument, means average on an average 2 years if he is fighting, then how he will rule?
Well, that's politics. How do you convince us politics? If Prithviraj Chauhan makes you the king of say 100 villages, you come and make you the king of 1,000 villages.
Okay, if you want to give this education to the people, then people will ask you this question that logically this is not matching with logic. How will you understand? How will you convince them? I am just asking you, nothing else.
Sorry, I didn't.
See, what he is trying to say is when he is taking the example of Prithviraj Chauhan, he is saying that when we will be telling people that this thing happened, so they will ask how he was able to get so many forces every year, how he was able to generate funds. So these are the problems that we might face when we are trying to bring about the other perspective.
Okay, so in which case I highly recommend reading Bharati Vidyabhavan's History and Culture of the Indian People and Delhi Sultanic volumes. All will answer.
Can you just sum it up?
Anybody else has any more questions?
I have.
Yes.
So where does the Indo-European linguistic, that perspective fit in the, because Aryan invasion theory has its roots from that, right? The non-existent, or so far nobody could trace a set of people called the Indo-European people who lived at a certain place in wherever, right? So who moved out of there and invaded the Dravidian lands. And so this perspective comes from the linguistic base. So how is this supposed to be? I mean, how can we attack this, and what do you suggest?
I think it was William Jones who
yes,
sowed the seed of this.
Yes.
This idea.
In fact, you'll be surprised how many papers exist contesting that also.
Yeah. So he traced the similarities between Sanskrit and European languages, and then he found that this was a superior language, but that would kind of upset the colonial apple cart. So he said somehow, we are the colonial guys, so we would have been the earliest guys.
Yeah, that is correct.
We were the inventors.
That is correct. But when you put the Avesta language into perspective, right, it's pretty close to what Sanskrit is, right? So from that point of view, what he says seems to be probably right. So how do we get into the root of the or the truth for that matter? Where did this similarity start from? How did this similarity come out? Because now when we say that there is an out of India theory, we can say that Sanskrit was the one which has probably put some Sanskrit roots into that, but into Avesta language. But still there is no concrete proof.
The point is that some invaders, alien invaders came from Central Asia, settled here and developed Sanskrit. And they were alien invaders, mind you, they were not Indians. So this is at the root of the whole thing. Right? Colonial superiority rests there. And they described the Aryans as similar to, in physical features, similar to the Europeans. So that is the point of contention. The whole linguistics thing is only secondary. It was derived from linguistics, like you
So
said.
you mean to say that the cause is different,
Yes.
the effect is the linguistic.
Race was the. I have an important question to see how we can take it further. Now you really enlightened us well. Whenever you try to explain to people that listen, we've been served all this crap history, let's go correct it. There are more people in India who are opposed to that because of various reasons. The Dravidian politics, or the communists, or the Muslims, or whatever. Everybody has their own reasons to be comfortable with what is being already dished up. So obviously you'll be a saffron, you'll be an RSS guy, blah blah blah. All those negativity will come into picture, even though they know internally that they are being fed wrong history. But they have political reasons. This caste system, all the stuff is there. So in your view, in your analysis and history, what would you suggest as a more positive message to people saying, hey, you've been fed wrong history. Let's go correct it. It's your history and my history. Like the Jews have a Holocaust thing. In India, if you talk about Holocaust, you're communal. If you talk about Tipu Sultan, you're communal. How do you provide the positive message saying you've been fed wrong history? And let's go correct it.
Only reputation.
No, he has a good point of politics, forcing it, but politics is not the only way.
The political way is ultimately the most complicated. Nothing is certain in politics, right? Everybody thought BJP would come back to power in 2004. What happened? So,
it's beyond politics.
Yeah, it's beyond politics. So you have to keep repeatedly saying it. There is in different forums to as many people as you need. There is no other way.
Instead of saying that approach is wrong,
Yeah,
we should be saying this is another approach.
This is how it is, and these are the facts that support this.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes, please.
Coming to this point also. I've spoken about this a couple of times. I like to call it a resistance syllabus. So, for instance, some of us are married actually. We've been through a phase where we became aware of a lot of these things through trial and error, through different phases of argumentation, debates, and finally through an accident, perhaps. Some of us are here. The insight from such discussions is that should not be the case henceforth. So, but the power of framing the syllabus or framing the curriculum is not resting.
It's not in our hands.
It is not in our hands. But it is not out of our hands also. For instance, social media and its power has proven that point. Till now, the mainstream media was overlord and of all this survey. But now social media has effectively neutralized and challenged and neutralized that kind of influence. Why can't, I've read quite a bit, but so I'm assuming that there are texts which speak from a Hindu perspective across different age groups. So, for instance, there are books for the very young, there are books for the, let's say, the high school going kids, there are books for the college going person, there are books to be read at leisure. So, can this be one step ahead where we create a curriculum and publish it and say, in very informally, social media style, we say that this is an alternative mode of study. So if you have a 6 or 7 year old child in your home,
it's a good idea, except I have a question. Now, your 6 or 7 year old child reads this book that we have all written, but he or she can't write that and score in the exams.
sure.
So what you will be doing is you will be feeding almost opposite information.
Yes.
The school textbook tells her one thing, your book tells her one thing. So how will that impact?
Well, this is what I do.
Your child's
This is what I do with my daughter.
things.
with my daughter. I tell her, the things that you study in history at school, don't believe anything until you check with that's what I do. Very clearly. Very clearly. Because
as a child grows up, right, there's still this confusion of, okay, school versus land.
I think that isn't that better? Isn't that confusion better rather than then going to whole house and saying, this is what it is.
It is better, I mean, we can just go on.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I'm not sure about here, but at least in the West, the RSS run Saraswati school have a sacred book called Gaurav Ghat. In class 4th and 5th, they teach this book about all the real history of India. I am not sure how effective they are.
Even they conduct yearly exam also.
Yeah, for the Gaurav
Sanskrit Ignan Pariksha. Sanskrit Ignan exam.
I have one more question.
As far as history is viewed, I was discussing with Jaideep even while coming here, how seriously or how authoritative can archaeoastronomy be in dating historical events and in forming a perception of when events happened and how, etc. I mean, I've heard many people say, okay, there was an eclipse then, and such an eclipse having its effect here. If it's a total solar eclipse in, say, Kurukshetra, it could have been only at this year or this year or this year. How reliable is something like that?
Professor Sanskrit had done this dating of Mahabharata war.
Yeah, Professor, but I've read that. Yes.
I am not qualified to comment on that because I don't have enough knowledge.
But is that a valid perspective in studying history?
If it adheres to all logical principles, it could be valid.
See, only for us.
Now there is this thing about dating the Vijayanagar, the actual time of Krishnadevaraya's reign. So much of work in Telugu has been done on this. One guy actually traces the month when Krishnadevaraya's wife became pregnant and to when she delivered, and based on that he arrives at his exact date of coronation. Something like that.
One question. Like the Eurocentric theory, there is a new one called the subaltern studies, which is catching up very fast. What is your take on the subaltern study on history?
I'm very clear.
See, the notion of subaltern studies is basically that we look at history from a political perspective or even from a business perspective. For people who are important to the historical record, like the king or a very rich merchant. So the question comes, well, what does the ordinary person say? Right? That's nice, the king said this policy we will have of giving all travelers free lodging on this highway. But how was this received? How does it impact the lives of day-to-day people? If I go to 300 BCE, whatever settlement there was, say, in the Mysore area, if there was one, what were their daily lives like? Now, these things will never be recorded, or usually are not recorded, because nobody really writes, yes, I had this for lunch, and that will not be preserved in history. So that was the original goal. But the luminaries of this field have a certain perspective on history, which is a very strongly postmodernist Marxist fusion, which creates problems in how history is interpreted. So there are questions to that. In fact, there's one thing which there's an essay by Gayatri Spivak, Can the Subaltern Speak? And to that my answer is no. We don't have the record for this. The problem with this becomes that one very good example is there's another wonderful book on imperialism in Indonesia. There's this woman who goes and interviews these Indonesians, I forget her name now, and all of them say that
you know, the Dutch rule wasn't that bad. Yes, there were a couple of excesses, but on the whole, you know, yes, we like our freedom, we are happy we're independent, but they were not cruel per se. She goes back and she says, but see, these people don't understand what this means, because, you know, in Europe we were doing this, and this is what the average citizen could expect. Here these people don't have these standards, and therefore they're oppressed and they don't know it. They've been colonized internally. That is another. So my point is, if this is how you're going to spin it anyway, that analysis loses its power.
So it's also the other side of the
No, it's Marxism 2.0.
One more question. So from what Sanjay was saying, would it make sense to have a major minor kind of an approach in professional education? You know, saying that major you can do these things, minor you should concentrate on culture, art, language, history. Would that make sense? So I mean,
unless and until books are changed.
yeah. So again, that's the question, right? I mean,
the whole point is about what is being taught in history now. That needs to change.
So when you can question the
ultimately it's ultimately it is a political decision that has to be taken. In the end.
Yeah. I just wanted to say one more thing. This goes back to Manohar's question.
These efforts, what we're doing and what needs to be done, should somehow serve as vehicles to push for that, no matter who comes to power. This is the history that will be done.
Yeah, I just want to say, Manohar had this question earlier about how the Chinese have approached this history question. The Chinese have the same problem that we have today, which is that a lot of the civilizations, the dynasties, I should say, were dated much later than what they locally felt. So the Chinese said, okay, this is in 3000 BCE, and these Europeans will come, no, it's probably 200 BCE. What the Chinese did is they mounted a concerted effort, which goes on to this day, now for different purposes perhaps. They have state historical society, whatever you call it. Many of these countries have it. The National Endowment for Humanities in the United States, which will fund research projects, all these things. They pushed their views, they pushed it to be translated. Now, that changes a lot of things. Now, if you know, you could be the absolute best scholar in Telugu or Kannada and write a book, what's your readership? What the Chinese government did is took it, translated it into English, threw it out there. Let's see what the response is. If it's good, it will be accepted. Say, this guy is brilliant. Otherwise, they'll reject it for whatever reason. Nonetheless, the debate started. And over time, and this is 50, 60 years, I'm not talking about 5, 10 years, 50, 60 years, the West has come to accept that Chinese... and I won't say that the state said this is what history is, you should do it. They let it go on its own because they're fairly convinced of... there's a general consensus that, okay, China is older than this period that they have done. And they just went with it. But this underlines a problem for us also, in that ultimately, as you say about school textbooks, there is a sort of a state role in creating a basic general framework in which we view ourselves. Once you get older, we can dispute this. Howard Zinn has, his book on America. Once you go to college, you can sit and argue about the details. But the basic framework of the American exceptionalism, for example, is set in school. In India, we can rely on no such support policy from the state. I just want to, and part of it is also that our interest in history, we might have it here, but I don't know how much that really translates to anything. For example, how do people view history? I can tell you, despite my doing a PhD, when I tell someone I'm doing history, people look at me funny. They're like, what? And you have an undergrad in engineering and you quit that to do...
Get it very passionately and go very charged, but the reality is that not everybody feels about it this way, and that is what the propagandists actually thrive on, right? Because most people don't sort of question what is being told to them. Most people don't have time, most people don't have the inclination, most people don't really understand also, and that's a big challenge. It has to be fought at various levels. This is a battle at the political level. This is something that has to be fought at the academic level. This has to be, most importantly, fought at the level of the common man. And dare I say that the most important thing is for people to give them a context to relate things to, give them talking points. If if you tell somebody to actually look at a certain event of in history, he or she may not be that interested because it's not something that the person will use very regularly. But if that thing can be contextualized to how and what is happening in the current contemporary world, then I think that makes an interesting point. So, while Sanjay has a prescription and he tells his kids that what should be taught is not correct, I don't think many parents are also equipped to do that. Let's admit it, right? And that's an issue. What we need to do as a group here is that use what is available at our disposal, and the democratization of media through social media is a very good tool. Your blogs and your various other technologies that are available to us have to be used. And we must constantly try and create a network of people who can be the resource point, and then there can be people who can consume what is being generated there. And the ecosystem that will evolve by this mechanism may not be a very formal one, may not be a politically driven one, may not be an academically driven one, but yet it will be a very powerful tool. And if such a large network of like-minded people can be created, then I think we will do our bit in correcting some of the anomalies that exist. And I think we should all strive to do that at least. Those who are in academic or those who are more inclined politically, and those who hopefully get to some point of influence later in their lives can do whatever else is required. But let's start doing that bit from now on, right? And there are very prolific bloggers. Sandeep is one. Kiran tweets very regularly. Jaideep writes. There are a few other bloggers. You look around, and so we must encourage them. We should plug them. Some of us can actually take on the mantle of creating that content and pushing it out. And I'm sure we'll do very well. We've come a long way, and we can change the narrative for good. And all it takes is 15 years, not more than that. And if we can't do it in 15 years, then I think we should all reconsider our passions hopefully. So thank you so much. It's a Saturday evening, and I really appreciate the fact that you've taken the time to be here in such large numbers. And we'll continue our effort, and we'll continue to sort of ignite minds and create Jijnasa as we call it. So thank you so much.